Perfect. Thank you, Denise. So before we dive into the presentation, we'd love to hear a bit more about who is with us here today. So we've set up a Mentimeter. I'm putting the link in the chat. And we're just curious to know what you're hoping to learn from today. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the answers to that. And this is also just to help the speakers maybe steer their presentations in a way or another. But of course, we won't be able to cover everything, but maybe we can jump into it in the Q&A section of this webinar. Also, if Mentimeter isn't working for you, please feel free to just write on the chat what you're hoping to learn, and we'll be picking up responses from there too. Are you able to see my screen all right? Yeah, great, thank you. What conditions are needed to grow flax and the costs involved? I think we will definitely get some of that from Colleen. Yeah. Learn more about the novel crops mentioned, especially those mentioned like hemp, what's involved, what they like, what they don't like. Definitely going to hear a lot from that as well. General interest in bast fibers and links to textile production and markets. Interested in what you have to say. Yeah, great. That's really good. Find out more on growing flax. That's perfect. The speakers we have here today have practical experience on growing these crops. What farm systems can flax grow in? To learn about people's experiences growing flax and hemp, to learn about the commercial viability. That's great. I'm going to go on to the next slide, but you can keep your answers coming in and you can keep using the chat if you like. So we are keen to know if you're a farmer, crofter, or grower who's here in the audience, do you already have any experience of growing flax or hemp? And again, please feel free to use the chat if you prefer. Great. And I'm gonna stop sharing and we're gonna go into the presentations, but just so you know how this will work, we'll listen from the 4 speakers and then we'll go into a Q&A session. So if you have questions for a particular speaker as we go along, please pop them in the chat and then we'll be able to come back to them at the end of the presentations. So I'm going to pass over to Maddie from the Rowett Institute, who will begin talking to us about hemp.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everybody. Let me see, just a second. Okay, so can you see my presentation? Perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Magdi Neakshu. I'm a research fellow at the Rowett Institute. And thank you very much for inviting me to share.
Maddie, sorry to stop you mid-flow. We're just seeing the presenter side, so we can see like the notes. So I'm not sure.
I don't have notes, but I have to switch, obviously. Hold on a second.
No worries.
Well, let's try again.
Perfect. We can see the right one now.
But you can see, you see the right thing now because
Yeah,
on my screen,
good.
I don't have 2 screens. That's why I can't tell you. Okay, perfect. So thank you very much, Diane and Denise, for inviting me to share some of our work from the Rowett Institute and also to share some of my passion, which is hemp. 4 see if I can change the slides. Can you see the second slide? Perfect. I'm very sorry for this. Yes, so for the last 12 years at the Rowett Institute, we are aiming to address some big issues of society that we meet, like a poor ecosystem, loss of biodiversity, but in the same time, we encounter so many non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And the way we address this issue is through researching crops, novel and underutilized crops such as hemp, buckwheat, potato bean, peas and bees, and lupin, just to give you some example. And by understanding their nutritional and health benefits, we are able to strengthen and to promote biodiversity. When I say biodiversity, it's dietary biodiversity and agricultural biodiversity. We are building a resilient food supply chain. We are improving health, and we contribute to a more neutral agriculture. And we do that by having quite a holistic approach in our research, understanding the benefits of the crop, but also trying to reduce all the byproducts from farm and from food processing when it comes to these crops. Today, I've been asked to speak about hemp, so all my presentation is focusing on hemp and how our research address biodiversity, and I'm going to address and bring evidence towards dietary biodiversity and environmental biodiversity when it comes hemp. Now, just a small slide about hemp. Hemp is an environmental friendly cash crop which has diverse uses. It's very beneficial for the environment due to its capacity to sequester carbon dioxide, but also it's a natural phytoremediator. And to grow hemp, you need a reduced amount of water, which is not a problem here in Scotland, but there is a problem in other parts of the world, but also the use of pesticides and nutrients. It's a great material for textile, bioplastics, and building materials. So it's a much an environmentally friendly alternative, but also is a great source of protein, fiber, and fat in our diet. It's very rich in minerals and bioactives, and we have proven that eating hemp, we help reducing hunger, so it helps promote satiety in our diet. Now I'm going to speak, even though we work for the last 12 years on hemp, I'm going to speak about a project that we currently run at the Rowett Institute. And this is a project funded by Scottish Government. Scottish Government asked us to investigate since 2012 crops that might be beneficial for the environment in Scotland, and to find crops that could be a sustainable alternative for food and feed. And our research demonstrated hemp, it's one of those crops. In the current project, we look to establish hemp as a new food crop in Scotland, because historically hemp grew in Scotland, but it was mainly for fiber. And by doing so, we are promoting a reduced carbon footprint food production for the farmers in Scotland. On this project, we looked for 3 consecutive harvests of hemp, and we work with mainly farmers in Northeast Scotland. Among those are John and Ali, and they will tell more about their journey into hemp. And we look to nutritional aspect of the crop, and we're currently running a consumer study on this crop, and we will run a nutritional intervention on the crop. But we also would like to, currently we gather information because we have all 3 harvests in-house and we analyze them. We try to understand whether the soil type or the location or the latitude or the use of fertilizer or not might, and the variety obviously, would affect the quality of the crop. And all the results I'm going to present are mainly on the seed, because this is the seed, this is the part of the crop that we use for food. Analyzing the hemp seeds produced in Scotland from the farmers from Northeast, we have seen they are a complete source of amino acid. That means they have all the essential amino acids that we need in the diet, and also they are high source of protein. Everything which is above 18% of the dry matter of the seed is considered a high protein source. They are also rich in dietary fiber, especially in fiber that can be fermented by human body, which is called non-starch polysaccharide fiber. But most importantly, it's a very healthy source and very rich source of fat. And there are the omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, which are very in abundance in this seed. It's 20% of the weight of the seed is omega fatty acids. Saying that it's a resource of various minerals, and it's a naturally gluten-free crop. Now, for the very first time in 2022, hemp oil has been produced commercially in Scotland. I think that this was a historic moment. And here you can see part of the farmers who we were actually in a rapeseed pressing facility, because we needed to adapt, and the farmers, Ali and John, can tell you how we started. So where the first oils has been produced, and at the Rowett Institute, we look at we analyze this oil, and we look what are the nutritional benefits and potential recommendation when it comes hemp oil. So just to give an idea, so the seeds are cold pressed, and is producing the oil. The oil is a primary product when it comes hemp food. And this generates 2 byproducts. One is called, well, you can call it sludge. I would refer as fudge. So this is the fudge. So this is the part that once you filter, so the oil is very turbid when you press the seed, and once you filter the oil, you have these masses like, it's almost like, I don't know, it's high in fat and it's spreadable, I would say. Maybe Ali can give a better description of this product. And this one is the cake. And the cake, it's the actual hemp flour. So what you see commercially as hemp flour, it's the actual cake milled into a flour. You can't mill the whole seed because of the high fat content. Now, hemp oil has a very high content of fat and a very high content of omega-6 and 3 fatty acids. It could reach up to 77% of the oil. But more importantly, and I would like to draw your attention on the composition of omega-6 and 3. The omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 3:1, which is ideal for human health. And that makes it superior to rapeseed and olive oil because of this. 10 grams of this oil, which is less than a tablespoon, delivers 2 grams of omega-3, which is an approved health claim and has been scientifically proven to maintain normal blood cholesterol level. Now, the hemp fudge. So after we look at the primary product, we look at the potential, we look at the composition of the byproducts to understand their composition. And by doing so, we can understand the potential to be used as and introducing as foods. So as you can see, the hemp fudge, even though it's a byproduct, is very high in protein and very high in fat. 22 grams of this product can deliver your 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids, which is not a lot. It's also very rich in minerals like phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, manganese, iron, and zinc. And also, obviously, it's gluten-free. The cake, which is as I said, if you mill the cake, you produce the flour, which is the hemp flour, which is a naturally gluten-free flour. More important, it needs to be produced in a natural gluten-free environment to not be contaminated and to be certified as gluten-free. It's very high in protein, also very high in fiber. Once you remove all the fat, you increase the fiber content and the protein content, and has some fat, up to 15% fat is retained in the flour. It's a very rich source of minerals, and by doing so, it can be used as a natural fortifier to fortify wheat flour to increase the minerals in food formulations. Fudge, oil, and flour and cake are the primary products that are used to produce milk, oil, and bread, which are 3 staple foods. Currently at the Rowett Institute, we run a consumer study where we give people to eat hemp milk, hemp oil, and hemp bread, each for 1 week, and we are assessing the consumer acceptance to these foods, because it's not enough to understand the nutrition and potential health benefits of a crop. It's also important to see whether people eat it. And with these 2 pieces of information, with their composition and their acceptance by the public, we definitely could identify opportunity, uses, we can give recommendations. This last year, we have written for the government a summary report where we analyzed the Scottish hemp oil, and we gave nutritional and uses recommendation to the government. As you can see, hemp oil can be used as a table oil. That means you can use it in a very similar way that you use the olive oil. And you can use as is in a salad, or you can gently fry it. Being a healthy fat and having omega-3, omega-6 and 3 fatty acids, it contributes to maintain healthy levels of cholesterol. Contributed to a recommendation of meeting vitamin E daily recommendation, protein and fiber, so you can diversify your diet, your protein in your diet by using hemp, and you can boost your fiber consumption by eating hemp. Can be used as a fortification for food industry to increase the microelements, the mineral, and to address all sorts of dietary necessity. And also, now we are running trial and see the suitability of hemp, especially cake, and also fudge, to replace soya and other unsustainable sources of protein from animal diet. Currently, having also all this information on hemp, we are currently working with industry and develop through various projects from different funders innovative and functional products, whether they are food or non-food products coming from hemp, or hemp byproducts when comes fudge, cake, or for agricultural products like hemp stalks, the rest of the plant. We are definitely delivering nutritionally superior foods which address nutritional requirements, promote health, improve sustainability, and ultimately we create new products in the market, promoting agricultural and dietary biodiversity. And the last slide I have is I want to present a very short work we did. As I said, we work with farmers across Scotland, and we try to understand. I know primarily we look at nutrition and health, but we also try to understand if hemp has any effect on the soil. So what we did, we had sample from 3 different farms before and after growing hemp. So we call it spring and autumn sample of soil. So prior putting the hemp in the ground and after we harvest the hemp, and it's a small pilot study. But what we saw, so this is a collaborative work with SRUC and James Hutton Institute, and we saw the hemp had a significant effect on soil pH, so had a significant increase in pH, and also a significant increase in soil organic matter. This pilot data will definitely be used to apply for further funding to run proper agricultural trial where to understand further the benefits of hemp on soil to promote it as a true rotational crop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maddie. That was really interesting. Really great to hear about the broader context of hemp and nutritional opportunities, as well as market opportunities. That was really great. I'm gonna pass on to Ali and John now, who will talk a bit more about the practical aspects of growing hemp as farmers. Oh, and I'm sharing your screen.
Right.
Great, let me...
Right. Hiya there. My name's John, and I'm the farmer. So I think if I can get the screen up.
Yes.
Here we go. I'll give you just a little background about the farm. We're a very traditional Scottish farm. We've got livestock, and probably spring barley is our main sort of crop. So in 2021, the opportunity arose for us to grow, or to try and grow hemp. I'm using try as the word because we didn't know if we could grow it. So there was a lot of experimental sort of work to try and find the best way to plant it, to harvest it, and actually see if it was possible. Well, we did harvest it, and yeah, it was a success. It was hard going. The first thing we have to do was apply for a license. So we had to, unknown to us, we had to apply to the Home Office in London to get a controlled drugs and firearms license. Now, it was quite a rigorous sort of process. Next slide then, sorry, please. So once we had got our controlled drugs license, we were then able to order seed. So the first year that we grew it, we grew, oh, I think the slides are out of sync here, but
That's the last one.
Oh, is that not the right slide?
yeah, no, I think that's the last one.
That was the first?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll work with that one. Yeah. So once we got a license, there was a lot of stipulations on the license of what we could and couldn't do. The field that we have to grow it in has to be away from main roads, houses, pretty remote, which for us isn't a problem because our farm is remote. So that was the first obstacle that we had to get over. The next one was that we had to try and source certified seed. Now, the variety that we chose to grow was Finola. It's probably one of the most common ones grown in Europe. So as a group of farmers, we all batched together our order. Rather than order individually, we grouped all together to hopefully buy in bulk. So we 10 farmers originally grew it in 2021. We all wanted to do sort of things differently to see which worked the best. So, as I said earlier, we're a very traditional sort of farm, so we just ploughed the field as normal, and the field was actually meant to be going into spring barley. And at the last minute, we decided to put hemp in the field. So we just used our drill, our equipment that we sowed the spring barley with, and because we'd already ordered fertiliser, we just put on the spring barley fertiliser onto the hemp. Now, I don't know if that was right or wrong, but I had the fertiliser and I thought we'd give it a go. But since then, we're trying to reduce our fertiliser and we have been reducing the rates and it hasn't really been affecting the yield. So I don't know how far we can bring back the fertiliser rates, but we're certainly bringing it back small proportions every year. One of the biggest things with growing the hemp is that it doesn't like cold, frosty weather. So where we are, we still get frosts into sort of late April, beginning of May. So it has to be sown into warm moist seedbed. So we've been aiming at the 15th, around about the 15th of May, to try and get the seed established. There's no chemicals, there's no weed killer, there's nothing is approved to spray on the fields. So the critical thing with hemp is to get it established quickly and let it smother any other sort of weeds out. So if it can motor on as quickly as it can, that's half the battle. A few of the other farmers have struggled to establish the hemp, and the weeds have actually taken over and smothered the hemp out. Whereas, I don't know, we've been quite lucky and had 3 years and 3 successes. If we go on the next slide, please. So as I said earlier, one of the sort of the benefits to me was the fact that we didn't need any extra equipment. So it's the same drill that I used to sow the barley, and it's the same combine that I used to harvest the barley. Harvest date, we were told, would be approximately 120 days after sowing. In the 3 years that we've done it, it's worked out about 125 days later. So it's so late and harvested actually just after we normally finish combining our spring barley. We have noticed that we don't quite know what the fungal disease is. Hopefully this year we're getting the James Hutton Institute to get involved with it to try and work out what we're calling a brown rot. We don't know what it is, but we do feel that it is taking yield away from the crop, because the seed head itself, you can see it dies basically. So that's definitely affecting yield. The combine settings, we grow oilseed rape, so we just thought that it's a similar size seed to oilseed rape, so we've just basically set the combine as for oilseed rape. And another part of our license is that we must chop and destroy all the leaves and flowers from the crop. So our combine has got a straw chopper on the back, so we set it the table, the cutting height quite high, just to cut to the actual seed head, and then chop all the byproduct out the back of the combine. Another important thing with growing is it must get dried or aired straight away. We don't really have a moisture meter that's calibrated for hemp, so we're guessing that it's probably harvested at about between 25, around about 25% moisture. So it must get dried straight away. So we normally just half fill the combine tank and then empty it into the trailer and take it straight away to the grain dryer. The dryer that I've got is it's a mobile, a Pico type dryer. I don't know if anybody knows them, but it blows hot air through the product, which then blows a lot of the chaff out. So once we're finished drying it, it's quite a clean sample, but it's still not clean enough to press. So we then have to run it through a dresser to hopefully take out all the chaff and any possible barley contamination that's been carried over through the combine. The yields that we're getting is approximately 1.5 tons per acre. It's not a lot, but I think with speaking to other farmers, certainly in Scotland and in Europe, that's quite a good yield actually. It's just the yield that it is. You know, we're trying to fine tune things to increase yield, but at the moment that's where it's sitting. Once we've got it dried, you need to dry it down to below 8% to store. We are storing it in ton tote bags and then putting it in a shipping container. As it's going for oil consumption, well, for human consumption as in oil, we're trying to keep it obviously as sterile and vermin proof as possible. Once we've got it dried down to the desired level, it's then sent away to get tested. Ali, she'll speak about that later on, that it's all put through loads of tests for gluten and all the rest of it. So she can speak about that later on. And just the last point there, like I say, there's 10 of us originally started to grow hemp, and we've kind of collectively come together to form the Scottish Hemp Growers Association. Originally in 2021 there was 11 of us. I think in 2024 there possibly might only be 2 or 3 growing. the market to sell we're finding is very, very hard. So a lot of the others have decided that it's just not for them.
Yet.
Yeah. And the next slide, I think that's everything. Yep, these are just a few slides from the harvest. The picture in the top left is possibly 2 to 3 weeks before harvest. Again, we've got years of experience of when to harvest barley, wheat, oilseed rape, but we're just gaining that experience on when to harvest the hemp. When you look on YouTube and you see farmers doing it in France and Canada and America, it's a totally different ballgame to what we're doing in Scottish conditions. So it's all still a learning curve, and I don't know, I'm still open to a lot of advice as to when the optimum time is. And that, I think, is my last slide. Oh yeah, the other thing that we do is the byproduct that Maddie mentioned, the cake. So once we've had the seed pressed, we're left with the oil, which is the main product that Ali takes on. The first 2 years, the byproduct, the cake that we were left with, I'd spoken to an animal nutritionist, and previously we would buy in soya as a high protein source to feed to the cattle. So the nutritionist, she worked out a diet for me to include hemp rather than soya. And the hemp's, I think Maddie had already said, it's around 30 to 35% protein. So we were trying to feed it to the suckler cows to try and improve the colostrum quality for the calves, to give the calves an extra boost at birth. So there was no trials done on that. It was difficult to prove if it did or didn't improve the colostrum quality, but we did it anyway. So that's obviously another place where maybe trials could come in. And that's it. I think that is my last slide this time. Yeah, so now I'll pass on to Ali, and she can tell you all about the oil part of it.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'll try and not go into too much detail because I sometimes go off on a tangent when I start speaking about hemp. So I became so passionate about the crop because of its health benefits. I just had this hankering that I had to start a business. So I gave up my job of 11 years with a precision farming company and launched Hemp It Up, started trading in July at a local market. Next slide, please. So my logo, as you can see, there's a heart in there. That kind of the heart runs through all of my branding, and that's very much to show the heart health because of the omega-3. I sell business to business, so I am looking for stockists all of the time that are an ideal fit for my product. And selling wholesale, and then I go to markets 2 or 3 weekends every month just to try and get some cash flow and spread the word. And what I'm finding is certainly when I just had the oil and the cost of living crisis, people did find it was more expensive, and because they didn't know about its amazing nutritional profile, the cost, I think, and because it was new, put them off. But when I sell at a market, they taste, I tell them about it, and they buy. So it is definitely down to information, and that's key. I can't thank the team at the Rowett Institute, Maddie and Wendy, for giving us all this information that they've researched on our seeds over the past 3 years. It's hugely beneficial because I think it gives our consumers, customers, confidence that that information has come from just up the road. It's not just something that's been plucked off the internet. So I very soon realised, though, that I had a huge amount of oil pressed, and the clock was ticking, so I needed to add flavour to reach a wider audience. Next slide, please. So I got involved with a development chef, came up with some flavors, added some more of my own. I spent about, I think about 15 months doing taste testing at markets before I put them through nutrition and got them labeled and everything. So I've got these flavors. It's based on apple cider vinegar, lots of fresh herbs, and trying to use local produce and just keep on that healthy theme. So I've got some garlic and chili infusions as well, just to add to the range. Next slide, please. My latest products is to try and get into more places like, you know, your bigger farm shops. I think a lot of them said, oh, have you got a gift pack? Have you got something small, like an introduction? So I created this box at the top left where there's 5 salad dressings. There's an apple, fennel and rosemary, lemon and ginger, orange and coriander, raspberry mint and balsamic, and blueberry, basil and thyme. And then there's a little bottle of oil in there as well. And I think that's working really well because it's in a lot more places now. And when people see the box, they want to stock it because it's ticking more boxes and it's nicely packaged. Then we bought a mill a few years back. We've been playing about with the sieves and working on other things, and we've now got protein to market. In the next few months, well, I'd like to think next month actually, I hope to have hemp flour. I'm just trying to come up with a name because if I call it fibre flour, it could be misconstrued with the fibres of the hemp, which is the stalk, and it's not really from the stalk. So, and I'm hopefully gonna have some whole hemp, which is hemp hearts. You might have seen them, or shelled hemp, and really what it is, it's the dish to the right there, and that is it's just the seeds with no shells on. And so you've still got all your good fats in there, and it's just another way of getting hemp into your diet. It's a little less offensive than so like the hemp flour and the hemp protein. It is quite an earthy taste. So yeah, it's just trying to find ways of getting it into your food that's not really, you know, altering the taste too much. So that's my next few projects, but I have got quite a lot of ideas up my sleeve. Yeah, we can go to the next one. So the challenges that I have faced, and there's been quite a lot. I thought, oh, this is an amazing product. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to sell it, and it'll be great. It's been very, very hard, and it's quite sapping on your motivation at times. But it is definitely increasing. Year 1, I suppose I only had oil, and now because I've got a bigger range, I've got a lot more to offer. So it's a better fit. But the stigma and confusion with hemp is ongoing, and it's really lack of public awareness. We do need, like any work that's been done, if we could have an advert on TV, something like that, or something on Landwood, that would be fantastic, because it would get the message to more people. And then when they see it in the shop, they go, oh, that's really good for me. I'm going to buy it. So the bulk markets, I'm working quite hard on trying to sell and get a price, and trying to sell oil and sell bulk. So hopefully in the next few months, we might have some solutions. In which case, once we've found some supply chains, we can then encourage more farmers to start growing again. And we'll feel that we're not leading them up the garden path. In regard to the fibre, we don't have the right bit of kit for cutting the fibres, but we are looking to see if we can get a shot of something to look into doing this, so that we can have a return on the fibres as well. There's not a lot of infrastructure in Scotland at all to handle this product and process it into a material that can go into what's getting used at the moment is building materials. So we do need quite a lot of help from the government to sort of get certain things in place, but it's coming. It's coming. So our next steps are, hang on, let me just move this over because I can't see. So the next steps for Hemp It Up is we are looking into the possibility of building a shed so that we can produce all our own hemp products at the farm and try and be a little bit more independent. But I don't want it to be any old shed. I want to use hempcrete blocks, which are strength and insulation, and also have some renewable energy, so probably solar as we are south facing. So that would be amazing because then we can showcase just the use of the fibres. I have got other ideas up my sleeve of how to incorporate more flavour and target a more gym-based audience. So looking at the protein, it's a watch this space for that one. But definitely working on more publicity, and I am trying really hard, not that I really want to be on TV at all, but I really want to grow my brand and shout about what we're doing. So I would love to be on Landwood. I just need the right people to pull a few strings and get things moving. And yeah, so take on some staff. I think I've got some freelance people working for me at the moment, so a bit of social media and my website, because I can't do it all myself. And I am going to look, I think, later on in the year for somebody part-time in marketing and sales, and also to help me with the production, because when I'm selling all this protein, I'm going to need somebody to help me do it. So basically, that's kind of where we're going. But yeah, things are definitely looking up, and we're just trying to build on them supply chains so we can sell the surplus seed that we have. And in the future, you know, with the group that we're working with, we'll know if somebody's looking for seed and we don't have enough, we'll know exactly who to go to supply that seed. So that's basically where I'm at. These are my my Facebook, Instagram, my website, and email. So I'm stocked quite a lot in Angus, bits of Perthshire, and Fife. And if you know of anywhere that you think would be a good fit, then please drop me a message and I will get in touch with them, send them some samples along.
Great. Thank you so much, Ali and John. Really interesting to hear the practical aspects of growing it, but then also of taking it further. It sounds like you're doing some amazing work. I'm gonna pass on to Colleen, who's gonna tell us all about Flax.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of potential overlap with hemp and flax. I'm going to try and share my screen there. For yeah, especially the kind of growing and processing and the kind of similar challenges. So I think quite good to join up a bit more on those. Right, let's see. Is that going to presentation mode yet? Yeah, okay. And can you see my notes at the side, or can you see the one screen? Right, okay. So hello everybody. Thank you, Diana and Denise, for having me along to this chat. So I work for Soil Association of Scotland, and also with Innovative Farmers, which is part of that kind of wider network. And for the last year and a bit, I've been involved in a trial growing fibre flax. So I'm going to talk a bit about that and the experience that we've had on the kind of growing side, and a bit with the kind of processing and supply chain kind of questions as well. And before I start, a quick kind of clarification that we've been growing fibre flax, not flax for seed. And you can see the comparison there in the height of them. So fibre flax, as I'll kind of talk a bit as I go through, is much taller. It is less branched out as a crop because you want that long thin fibre as long as you can for processing into linen, textiles and linen, whereas the seed crop, it doesn't need to put energy into growing that tall, and it produces kind of 3 or 4 times the amount of seed that the fibre variety does. And it's the same plant, but just different varieties that have been bred to produce more seed or to grow taller for the fibre crop. So flax, and I think a bit with hemp as well, but flax was grown extensively right across the UK, from Orkney to the Western Isles, down to the borders, right down through England and Wales as well, and in Ireland. And so it used to be kind of a big part of our heritage. It used to be grown quite a lot on the kind of very small kind of back garden and croft and small holding scale as well. And people would be kind of processing it over the winter for their own use, I think for kind of clothes, lots of different uses. And then, you know, with the Industrial Revolution, it kind of ballooned into kind of a massive industry, supplying at its height, you know, kind of ship sails, sacks. It was used for everything. It's a very strong fibre. So it's been part of our kind of growing heritage for a long time. And then kind of after the war, and before that a bit, there was a lot of changes that came at once to kind of lead to the demise of the industry. You know, when processing was cheaper to do elsewhere, it was cheaper to buy in different fabrics. People, you know, ships didn't need sails anymore. Lots of things kind of happening at once, that meant that it just stopped being grown, and then wasn't processed in the factories anymore in this country. So it hasn't been grown in Scotland or the UK since probably about the 50s on a commercial scale. But there's a growing interest from sort of a few different places in regenerative textiles, sustainable textiles, especially for kind of clothing and fashion, looking away from fast fashion to, you know, how can we make clothing and textiles more sustainable? But then there's also kind of different levels that I'll tap into a bit as I talk along. So last year, and now going into 2024 as well, we are doing a variety trial of fibre flax, testing 3 varieties, and it's a collaborative project, kind of facilitated through Innovative Farmers and Soil Association Scotland, but with support from the James Hutton Institute as well, and a number of other organisations. And Edinburgh College of Art was a sort of instigator in making us think about fibre crops. So the trial bit, I'll talk about the trial, and then the process of growing it and kind of, you know, benefits and features of growing it. So we compared 3 varieties, Avian, Delta and Tango, which have all been bred in the Netherlands. So there's no sort of native UK modern varieties of fibre flax anymore, because all of that kind of industry was offshored. It's all the main flax growing countries are France, Belgium and the Netherlands. So there's 3 new kind of newly developed varieties that are coming from there, and we wanted to test how well they perform in Scottish growing conditions, because they're quite different from Holland in a lot of ways. Maybe, you know, kind of maybe similar climate along the east coast perhaps, but yeah, we've got a lot of different kind of growing conditions that it might perform better or worse. So we were testing these 3 varieties. We did kind of basic soil sampling, but I think this year we'll refine a lot of kind of what we were testing for and what we're looking for. And we measured a range of different things, but basically we were looking at yield and height as the predictor of, you know, how much fibre could you get from a crop of, you know, per hectare of whatever kind of area, and then the height as well, because you want as long a fibre as you can. So the yield between the 3 varieties wasn't massively different, but there was a lot of variation between the sites. So we only had 3 sites in the end. We had kind of started off with more, but we had three sites, but it was quite variable. There was one on the west coast, one in Angus, and one on the outskirts of Edinburgh, which is Lauriston Farm. So the yield was a bit variable, but kind of the Tango variety did least well overall. And then similar picture for height, less variation when you kind of average it out. And we found for the height, the height was an indicator of like weed burden. If there was more weeds in a field, it seemed to affect the height. And for the bits of the site that had less fertility added, seemed to have less lower heights. But we are increasing the number of farm sites this year, and testing the same 3 varieties again this year, to kind of see if that pattern emerges again. So that was an interesting kind of start. And part of it, half of it was just going through the process of growing flax, and the kind of sowing it and growing it was fairly straightforward, and then the harvesting and the retting bit, it's all just sort of going through that learning curve, growing it in different conditions from where it's been bred and where we know or are making kind of contact with people who have experience of growing it. The experience of growing it in somewhere like France is quite different to how it might perform in Scotland, where it's a lot wetter quite often. And so in addition to the trial sites, we also had a community network element of the project, and we had 30 community sites across Scotland on allotments, community gardens, crofts, farms, back gardens, growing just the avian variety, and some of them were growing flax, the seed variety as well. And that was a great way to just kind of engage people with the idea of growing a crop for fibre instead of for food, because at Soil Association, or particularly through my role, I'm the kind of farming lead in Scotland. I talk a lot about sustainable food production or regenerative food, organic food, but not so much about fibre or non-food crops. So it was just a really nice way to kind of engage a lot of people who, some of them already are growing food, like on allotments and community growing spaces. It was a really nice way to kind of introduce crops for fibre instead of food, and that whole idea of kind of sustainable fibre and textile as well. So that will continue again into next year too. And then as part of that, we teamed up with Edinburgh College of Art, their textile team. They have a project called Seeded, and that was also, a great kind of engagement tool to start those conversations around sustainability and in the textile industry, and that kind of small scale processing angle of flax for fibre, and what is regenerative fashion, just kind of starting a lot of those conversations through doing something practical with your hands while you're talking. So there was a lot of that kind of element through the project, alongside the kind of farm trial, which compared to all the other bits was kind of the most straightforward bit. So that always went in quite well. So in terms of the kind of processing, for the trial plots, they were quite small. So we used, this one's a Jang seeder, but you could use a kind of tractor scale drill, just as you were using it for another kind of arable crop. But we used these seeders just because of the smaller size of the plots. It just made sense for us to kind of go at that scale. So we sowed it in rows so that you could kind of weed in between mechanically. There was kind of a variation through the different sites in terms of inputs and chemical inputs. So one site kind of did a comparison of different fertilizer applications, and there was not a massive variation, I think, between those. The picture from this site is Lauriston Farm. Their growing it organically, and the other site isn't certified organic, but they didn't use any inputs at all. So I'll kind of go through different sort of options for, you know, the scenarios that it can grow in, but it kind of grows pretty well in a low input system. So we sowed, so similar to what John was saying, it doesn't like frost, a bit like hemp. So we waited until the start of May, I think right across, maybe the Angus site was a little bit earlier, in April, and the kind of received wisdom from folk we had spoken to in England who were growing it was to sow it in March, like the middle of March. And we kind of decided that if there's a risk of frost, we're not going to do that. So we waited a bit later, sowed it kind of end of April, start of May. And then there was a drought for a couple of weeks. So it kind of peaked through and then sat for a few weeks when there was no rain. And then when the rain came, it kind of shot away quite well. And it takes a similar amount of time to hemp actually to grow as well. The kind of recommendation in England is about 100 days, but we reckoned it was more like 115, 120 at the kind of latitudes that we were growing at. And then growing, I'm just going to move that bit of the screen so I can see my notes, but yeah, never before a drought, but then it came away pretty well, and then it flowers after about 40 days, and then it continues to flower, I think it's 60 days, and then it continues to flower almost up until the point where you harvest it. So from a kind of pollinator point of view, the pollinators were it was buzzing every time I saw it. And because it's got that kind of continuous flowering, it didn't all just sort of flower at once and then stop. There was just sort of, you know, flowers all the way through it for quite an extended period. So that was quite good. And it grew, so the height of it as well, the seed, flax seed, if you're growing it, is sort of a few inches tall, but our kind of optimum height for the fibre flax is about 1 metre. So we reckoned, comparing it with a couple of the community plots and the farm trials, where it had some manure application beforehand, or the soil had higher fertility, it grew taller, and where there was weed burden or a weed issue, that affected the height as well. So things that we'll be kind of looking to tweak going into this next year. Harvesting is not how we harvested. This is the harvesting pulling machines that they use in Europe. So flax needs pulled rather than cut, because you want to use the whole length of the fibre, and that fibre extends into the root for a few centimetres under the soil. So it needs pulled and then laid down to ret, which is old word for rot, basically. And in the continent, they've got these pulling machines that kind of whiz up and down the rows and flip it onto the ground, and then it gets turned after a couple of weeks. We didn't have access to a machine like that because it was just prohibitively expensive. But that is a barrier for setting up a commercial scale of operation, or a commercial network of growers, would be to get that harvesting machinery, access to something like that, because we harvest by hand, which I'll go to a picture of next, which is lovely if you're doing it on that kind of small trial plot scale and a community growing scale, and it worked really well as a very social activity, everybody kind of working together as a team, pulling it up and bundling it and laying it out for retting. But if you've got a whole field or fields of it, you couldn't do it without hundreds of people. So that is something that is kind of alongside the variety trial and the kind of community side. We're looking at the kind of wider processing equipment, supply chain, all the kind of other bits that need to fit in with that as well. So like I said, we harvested, it was more like 120 days or so. it didn't all ripen at the same time, but I think there was some variation, or in one of the sites there was kind of variation, possibly some compaction at one bit where it ripened at a slightly different rate, and then we laid it down to ret it, and that process allows the woody part of the stem, the lignins and the pectins, to break down, so that when you come to process it, they kind of break away and you're left with a very flexible bit for processing. And I'm not going to go too much into the processing bit in this presentation, but if people have got questions about that, we can chat about that. And I'll mention that a little bit at the end. And I'm just seeing how we're doing for time, so I'll speed up a bit. So the kind of growing bit of the trial, I think, has probably been the most straightforward, but flax, a bit like hemp, fits really well into the kind of principles of regenerative agriculture. It can be direct drilled, it can be undersown with other crops. We're potentially looking at undersowing it with clover this year, or teaming up with another project that's looking to do that. It can fit really well into a mixed or arable or horticulture rotation situation. So I think on the continent where they grow it a lot, it's between a 5 and 7 year rotation. I think 5 years is quite common. I think part of the reason for that is the sort of disease or pathogens, soil pathogens, which I'm not sure what crossover there is with the crops, with other crops. So that's something that we would kind of want to look at more. But it fits very well with kind of keeping the living roots in the soil is the other one as well. When you pull it up, you get kind of a few centimeters of root that come up, and I thought, oh, the roots are quite stumpy and quite short, but it turns out they go down about a good 30 centimeters or more into the soil, lots of very fine roots, and they stay in the soil, so that when you harvest the crop, all those roots stay in the soil. So that's really good for your kind of soil structure, your soil biodiversity, kind of leaving a food source there until there's another crop in, if you've not got it undersown with something else. So yeah, there's lots of things in that picture that I've pinched from the Groundswell website that it can fit really nicely into a low input system. And yeah, it kind of fits that idea of regenerative agriculture as now sort of translating into the idea of regenerative textile production and the circularity around kind of natural fibres. And so there's an organisation called Fibershed, which is a movement that started up in America, that there's now recently set up a affiliate in Scotland, which looks not just at flax, but also wool and other natural fibres, and kind of starting that conversation about regenerative textiles, how that relates to regenerative farming and production, and that whole kind of circularity, soil to soil idea. So benefits of growing flax are kind of things that could benefit your system from adding it to a rotation. And I kind of say rotation, I kind of quite often have the sort of farming context in my head, but it also works really well in a crofting context, in a kind of market garden rotation. Lauriston Farm, that was one of the trial sites, did it as part of their market garden rotation. So they're going to kind of move it around and grow it for the next couple of years, I think, to see how it works in that rotation as well. But the roots, like I mentioned, extend and they stay in the soil. So that has benefits for the structure and your microbial communities, your biological function, the impact that good soil structure and organic matter can have for things like water retention, drought resilience, or kind of recovering more quickly from flooding. I think we kind of can expect any of those scenarios going forward. And also the soil carbon as well. There's a a trial, I think, happening in England where they're looking at the kind of carbon sequestration element of the roots of flax. So that's something that we'll try and look at more of in this trial. Diversifying rotations, as I had said, it grows sort of April to August or May to August, so it can fit in with, you know, winter or cover cropping as part of, you know, mixed and arable rotations. Pollinators as well at all 3 sites. It would be interesting this year. We might, if we've got kind of resource to do it or connections to do it, excuse me, some surveying around pollinators that visit it, because it kind of flowers for an extended time, and that kind of habitat and structural element as well, you know, because it's really tall, we were finding a lot of creatures in amongst it. And then that sort of idea of diversity as well, increasing diversity into a system. It grows at lots of different scales, you know, it fits really well with the kind of small scale processing. It grows really well in a range of soils so far from what we've looked at. It grows really well without much inputs. It grows better with some inputs, but it doesn't need a lot. And we had a lot of kind of community sites where it had no, you know, no input at all, no kind of fertilizer or anything, and it grew pretty well. And the diversity of income bit, I think, you know, it can kind of come into the chat a bit more as well, about the supply chain side, which I'll come on to a bit more. We have been working at quite a small scale with looking at a kind of regional processing hub kind of model, and working with artisan processors. But for scaling it up, we would also be looking at that a kind of bigger commercial scale, and the pricing is more stable compared to food crops. And seed diversity, I'll kind of touch on that at the end. So opportunities coming out from growing flax at, you know, they're kind of different for all the different scales, but, you know, an alternative source of income if your main crop is kind of food or arable, it just sort of gives a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for, the stability, if because it's more likely that you're going to know the price in advance for the different markets. There's opportunities for added value for making sort of flax fiber products, so kind of processing it into textiles, yarn, linen, and also, you know, an opportunity for doing kind of workshops around the processing and things like that as well. There's been a lot of interest in the small scale processing, and that whole kind of conversation about localized textile supply chains. So going forward, our project is kind of linking up with lots of other things that are going on at the moment with flax and people growing kind of natural fiber crops. One of those is an organisation called Fantasy Fibre Mill that's based in Southeast Scotland, building a sort of developing a small kind of community regional scale processing that, you know, that model could maybe be like regional hubs for processing. So we're kind of, the processing is the gap at the moment, but that's sort of developing in tandem with this. So I can talk a bit more in the question and answer session, I think. But building that network, building the kind of supply chain networks around the growing of the flax, and linking those to the kind of end users, spinners, weavers, designers, makers, and also like the industrial uses. So there's a lot of interest from sustainable insulation companies, for example, and for motor and aerospace companies for using it as a composite material. And it'll be the same for hemp as well, that they're looking at combining flax or hemp fiber with carbon fiber to get the strength of the carbon fiber and the flexibility from flax fiber. So there's a lot of kind of different opportunities there. And then also the flax, the seed diversity question. There's another project, a kind of side project looking at seed and varieties, and can we have a seed supply that's based in Scotland, so that we're not having to import it every year. So I'll stop there, and I'm very aware of kind of going over the time by quite a lot, but yeah, hopefully that'll spark some questions there and a bit of discussion, and hopefully we've got enough time for a bit of chat and a bit of questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. That was super interesting. And yeah, we have lots of time for chat. That's why we made the webinar longer, to make sure we had time for this. So I'm just getting the questions from the chat. I'm going to invite the people who have put a question in the chat to unmute and ask the question if they would like. If you would prefer for me to ask it, I'm happy to do it. But it's always nice to have a bit more of a conversation if it's possible. So one of the first questions we had was by Kira on small scale growing. Do you want to come in, Kira?
Hi, Kira from Wick here. Yeah, it was in regards to growing hemp. That was a crop that we were really quite interested in, but with the restrictions placed on it, it seems like it's a little bit out of the question for really small scale growers. It's like we only have a tiny crop, so with the having to get the licenses and everything, it doesn't seem like it'd be particularly viable for us, which is a shame, huge shame.
Ali, John, would you like to come in?
Yeah, well, we are now on our second 3-year license, and the first year that we applied for it, it was about £700 to get the license. Now, this time, I take it's because we've done a lot of the groundwork already, and it was a sort of renewal of a license. It came in just, well, about half that price. But we are growing approximately 10 acres, which is like 4 hectares. So it's still a very, very small area, but at least we can spread over, a few acres. Whereas I can see your point, if you're in Orkney and you've only got a small area, it's quite an expense.
And it's the drying as well, isn't it? How are you going to dry it?
Yeah, because the seed will spoil within hours of harvest if it's not dried straight away. So that is critical, that you have to get it dried. Now, we are able to dry it in the same grain dryer that I dry my barley in, whereas I don't know what facilities you would have in Orkney to get it dry. I hope that answers some questions anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I think it does seem like it is off the table for us, as we wouldn't have the facilities to get it going, but still really great crop. And it's a shame, because it seems like it's really a great crop to grow.
Could I just ask you a question very quickly? Was it the seed variety or fibre variety that you were interested in growing?
Seed variety.
Right, because there might be more opportunities with the fibre, just on your scale moving down the line. It just depends on the bit of kit that's essential on, like Colleen showed us pictures there, just of how to manage the fibres. That's something that we don't have many of in Scotland. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add something regarding the license? We are really doing a lot of work and to try to address that, because the license is it's central, it's with EFRA, and we have been approached by several MSPs, which are now writing a letter to the Home Office Secretary of State, which is James Cleverly, to address removing the license for hemp for fiber and seed, or dual varieties, because and we hope this is just a matter of few years. So maybe if you are considering, not now, but maybe a few times, hopefully the license will be removed. I think in Europe, this process already started. So hopefully UK will follow soon.
Thank you, Maddie. Celine, you had a question about CBD. Do you want to pose it to the speakers?
Yeah, that might show my complete ignorance about this, but I see hemp product right, left, and center, not just in the cosmetic, like in the body shop. CBD seems to be everywhere. Is that something that if you grow hemp, do you end up with CBD? Is that a completely different thing to grow? Ali, do you, like, I'm sorry, I don't really know about this.
Do you want to answer that, Maddie, or do you want me to?
I maybe answer a bit and you can follow up, Ali. So just so we are clear, CBD, it's part of hemp. Hemp naturally contains CBD. The highest concentration of CBD is in the flower and not in the seed. So what you see in cosmetics and in health shops are extracts mainly done from flower of hemp. Currently, and under the current license that I think hemp, I'm sure Ali and John is not covered the CBD. It is a great market opportunity for CBD, but I think the law and regulation on evidence on CBD needs to be revised in order to the farmers to be able to apply a totally separate license to explore CBD. Everything, I think, what is in the market, if I'm not wrong, it's imported, it's not produced in Scotland. But as I say, even if we address the license, we are not there yet. So we are starting with the fiber and seed, and hopefully the CBD will follow. But you're right, Celine, it's a great market opportunity and does sell because of the health benefits CBD has.
So if it's from the flower, you can't have seed, but could you have flower and hemp fiber?
You have to destroy the flower. You see, the current license, if you are growing hemp, you are not allowed to take the flower and do anything with it by law. So that is the problem. So long the law allows you to do it, then obviously you can take advantage on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Ali, if you want to add anything.
Well, I would, just agree with what you say, Maddie. I have to sign the declaration that I destroy the leaves and the flower. Nobody's come and checked up on it, but it's quite a rigorous sort of paperwork.
So you wouldn't be able to grow the seed and then the hemp for fiber, because just now you have to destroy. You're keeping the seed, but you're destroying the rest, right?
You destroy the flower, but you can keep the stalk.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah, okay. So not super straightforward for now, but hopefully some more opportunities soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Denise, you were asking about soil organic matter improvement.
Oh, great. Thanks, Diane. Actually, can I just clarify something on the previous discussion? So obviously the seed comes from the flowers. So you have to retain the flowers in order to get the seed. So presumably, John, the license allows you to do that.
Yeah, so the hemp plants grow. There's male plants and female plants.
Okay.
So when we sow the field, there's 50% female and 50% male.
Okay.
So obviously the males pollinate the females, which then sets the seeds. And it's the seed that obviously we harvest.
Yeah. So it's the male flower. They're what we call monoecious. So single sex flower. Anyway. Right. So you take the flowers off. So do you destroy the male plants?
Well, the males just shrivel up and die, basically.
Sorry.
in the hemp field, anyway. Yeah. So it may look, a really thick crop, but out of the whole crop, you're only actually harvesting 50% of it.
Oh,
because the
wow.
50% of
This is
males
but do the male
is
plants
basically shrivel.
okay, but I mean, but presumably you can get fiber from the male plants, can you?
Yes. Yeah, we could get fibre from the males, yes.
So
But it's
when
the
you get
females
your
that produce
seed,
all the seed.
so the seed has to be 50-50, male, female.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, obviously in a bag of seed, it all
It's all
looks the same. I
mixed.
don't know. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what's what. It just looks identical.
Yeah. Wow, quite complex. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, so it was just really, is it the fact that you're actually having to re-plow or reintegrate the chopped leaves and stalks into the soil? Is that how the organic matter increases, or does it have quite a fibrous root system that remains in the soil?
It does have quite a deep root system as well. We don't have well, I've got a yield meter on my combine. It's not very calibrated, but the 3 years that we've grown hemp, the following years, for 2 of the years, we've grown barley in the fields after hemp, and they've yielded our best yield over the whole farm.
Really? Wow.
Now, Maddie has done research and she's proved that it increases the pH, and there's lots of other increases in it. And as a farmer, I can justify what Maddie's saying is true, because it has definitely increased the yields after hemp of the spring barley crop that follows it.
And how long is the pH? So it increases the pH.
Exactly.
So you're quite low pH where you are?
No, it's not low pH, Denise. I mean, in average, top of my head, it's around 6.34, and increases significantly between 0.1 to 0.4 units, which is you achieve that with tons of lime.
Wow.
So, which is a natural way to, you know, to do agriculture, you know, to lime your soil, and also we saw an increase in organic matter in soil. And what we will do, I think I saw somebody put something in the chat. So just to follow up, so my last slide was that very small pilot experiment where we did across 3 farms on the how much the soil changed from spring to autumn. Growing hemp. What we are doing now, we go towards the end of March on the same field to take another sample to see, because the roots are still, part of the roots are in the soil. So we wanted to understand what happened over winter. That soil, and in terms of pH, organic matter, and degradation of the organic matter, because I think it's not just the organic matter, it's the way this organic matter degrades until by time the next crop goes in the soil to help with you know, with to benefit the next crops. So that's still ongoing on the current experiment. So I could update you maybe towards later in the summer when I have all the results.
Yeah, that'd be so interesting, because so presumably the pH increase, is that from the roots that stay in the soil, or actually from the vegetation that's integrated post-harvest?
Oh, no, this is just before and after harvesting. So during growing the hemp, it's the way the structure of the soil changes, the way the top root goes, and it's everything what happened during the plant, during 120 days on the soil. I didn't look further than that. But also to add to what you asked, John and Ali, what happened, because what the Scottish farmer are, a problem the Scottish farmer are meeting when grows hemp for seed is because of the license, they don't have use of the stock of the rest of the plant. So we are currently looking a way to find a use and transform that in organic growing media for a green fertilizer, so the farmers will have an extra income and a solution, a real solution of what to do with that if they are growing only for seed and they don't have a real use for fiber, because so that's for something that
compost. So how deep is the root? How deep? Sorry, I'm hogging things a bit. So how deep does the root
is the root? I don't know, John, what do you think? But I from top of my head, what I read in literature, and I'm not sure I never pull and dig to see how deep, but I think there were reports something between 90 and 200 centimeters.
Wow, and it's a taproot.
Yes.
That'd be brilliant for soil profile.
Yeah, so that's why it has, opens the way to the soil. But I don't know, maybe John, you can comment a bit more on that, please, because
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
it's
an
certainly-
agronomist, so.
It doesn't have. I know what you mean by taproot, but it doesn't have one strong big root going down.
Okay. Yeah.
It seems to feather out. So yeah, I mean, there could be tiny little roots that go down 2, 3, 4 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
It certainly
amazing.
it breaks up compaction in any sort of hard bits of the fields.
Right. So it's biodiversity benefits really are soil. Thank you so much. That's really interesting.
Andrew Stevenson, would you like to come in with your question on yield results?
Hi, yeah, no, I was just interested from your trials, whether that was your retted yields or your fresh yields from when you pulled it, because they do seem, I think the European average for flax is around 6.5 tons. So if you're doing 10, it's quite a bit more than what they're doing.
Yeah, that was the fresh yield before it had been retted, and we measured, like we weighed it again once it had been retted, but I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't think to add that in. But yeah, we had, I think the worst or the lowest yield that we had out of all of it was 6 or 6.5 like tons to hectare, and the biggest was 12 or 13. So there was quite a bit of variation across the sites, but it was sort of 8, 9, 10 tons to hectare that we were getting of the straw, fresh straw. So that translates, I think, if you were processing that right into linen, I think about 30% of that becomes linen in terms of the weight. And then quite a bit of what comes out in the processing or what comes off in the processing you can use for other uses, depending on kind of what processing and supply chains you've got access to. But you've got your I'm trying to remember all the words now. I'm like learning a new vocabulary with all the processing, but you've got your long fibres that you would use to spin linen yarn, and then you've got your small, shorter fibres that come off that you can use for tow. So that would be making like ropes and sacks and kind of rougher material. So you can use that, and then the kind of chaff, I suppose, you can use for animal bedding and insulation and lots of different things that we're kind of looking into as well. So we've been in touch with an insulation company and talking to people about using it for bedding, people making it into pellets and stuff for things as well. So there's kind of lots of uses. I think you can pretty much use every bit as you're processing it, and you kind of end up with your high-end linen fabric as the kind of highest value product that you can make out of it. But then all the other bits through that process you can use for other things as well. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, we were getting pretty good yields.
No, that's good, thanks.
And
Thank
that
you,
was without
Colleen.
any inputs as well. So I think
Okay.
if there was one, 2 of them didn't have kind of any fertilizer, and it was just taken out of pasture and kind of cultivated for the first time, and that the height of that was less than like in the kind of market garden scenario where it had manure added previously. So if it had been on higher fertility ground perhaps, and less weedy, then that would have been better still.
So is there an issue with the fibre getting contaminated with other plant fibres then in a weedy scenario?
Yeah, so weeds is something, or weed management is something that we'll look at more in this iteration of the trial. One of the sites, Lauriston Farm, that was a market garden site, they deliberately didn't weed it. They kind of rotivated it. That was the photos of it being sown with the Jang seeder, and they deliberately left it because they knew that if they were going to integrate it into their veg crop rotation, they were never going to have time or resource to kind of go and weed it regularly enough. So they wanted to see how well it would do if it was completely neglected, and you know, if you could sort of sow it and then not give it any attention, could you still, you know, was that still a useful crop? And I think it was definitely a useful way to bring that ground into cultivation. It was definitely good. They said they really valued that crop attracting pollinators that then benefited all of their other veg crops in the field. That was really valuable. And we still got a good yield from it, even though it was quite weedy, but the weeds have a big impact on the ease of harvest. So even like it took us twice as long to hand pull it because you had to pull out all the weeds. If you were mechanically pulling it, it has to be weed free, otherwise the weeds get all tangled up, and the same for processing. So we will be looking at different options of kind of weed control in this year's trial, and possibly dovetailing with another project that we've just started talking to about doing undersowing with clover, and maybe using wood chip, and you know, different options for kind of low maintenance chemical free weed control for different scenarios. So that's more in the kind of, you know, market garden or smaller scale context, but yeah, also kind of relevant for the bigger scale as well, field scale.
Thanks.
Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, Andrew. Just because I see a few people are popping out because obviously it's late, it makes sense. But before we continue on the Q&A, because we're still getting questions in the chat, I just want to encourage you to go to our Mentimeter and just let us know, give us a bit of feedback on the webinar and respond to the question there. That would be really great. But I'll keep going with the questions now, and we have one from. Also, do correct me on your name pronunciation. I'm making it up as I go, so let me know if I get it incredibly wrong. The next one is Adrienne Deeply.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm trying to put my my camera on. Hi. I'm trying to remember what I asked. I'm from Fibreshed Wales and a part of SGF project in Cardiff Met. We've been growing flax. We had our pilot plot last year, so we're growing it again for a second season to teach, similar to I think it was ECA. They're saying they were teaching students how to process flax and into linen. So it's very exciting. My question was about rotation. So can flax and hemp be included in the same rotation?
I don't see any reason why not, but somebody may correct me on that. I've not, yeah, I suppose because there's so few people growing flax and hemp, I think folk that I know of in the UK are either growing one or the other, but maybe not both. But it would be interesting to look into more, because I guess kind of hemp fits into a rotation as well. So I don't see any reason why not. But maybe the scale, I don't know, Ali and John, how tall your hemp crop got, and the kind of logistics. So it might be, yeah, I'm not really sure is the answer, but it'd be interesting to look at. But yeah, from a kind of crop growing point of view, I can't immediately think of a reason why you wouldn't want to maybe look at doing that.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Just, I would say, I would agree with Colleen that I don't know the answer to that. We grow it on a 3-year sort of cycle. So the field that we're growing in 2024 is the field that we grew our initial crop in 2021. Now, I don't know if we could grow it continuous year after year. There's been no trials done on it. So just sort of good crop husbandry is you always sort of rotate fields. So that's the reason that we choose to grow it in separate fields. Plus, we'll obviously have to put in a location that's away from roads and houses. So that kind of limits certainly some of our fields. But yeah, I don't know is the answer.
Interesting. Thank you. It's been really interesting.
Let us know how that goes, Adrian, if you end up trying it yourself.
Sorry,
Oh,
can I
sorry,
ask
Maddie.
a question to Adrienne, actually? I mean, I know she's not here to answer questions, but from Colleen's presentation, I understand that fiber shed have a system soil to soil, right? So you put everything back into the soil. Can you tell me, because I'm very interested, because I'm trying to do something similar on hemp and try to bring everything from hemp back to soil and benefit the soil ultimately. What is your approach on you? You are obviously composting, that it's to compost it. You do it with the actual product, or with you do part of your plant material, the one that is not destined for fiber, or what is your approach to bring it back to soil?
Well, we have just started out actually,
Okay.
Fibre Shed Wales, so we've recently been established. So we don't have an approach at the moment.
Well, maybe we can discuss this out of the webinar, because I would be really interested, because I have a few things going on, and maybe be interested to see a direct comparison of flax and or flax products and hemp.
I think that would be really, really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, especially with the different regions. I think that would be a really nice
Yes.
conversation and comparison potentially.
Thank you.
Great. We have a question from Beth Rose. If Beth is still with, oh. So the question was for Colleen, where can flax fiber seeds be bought and sourced?
There is limited places at the moment, and it kind of, again, the answer depends on the scale that you're wanting to grow it. So for the kind of back garden, very small scale, community garden, croft kind of scale, we are getting our seeds from Easson's seed breeders, which are based in England, and they import it in from the seed breeders in Holland. You can buy that kind of a retail level from, there's a place called Flaxland in I think it's Gloucestershire, and they're my kind of go-to people for extra information, because they have been growing flax and using it in a lot of different ways for a long time, and know a lot about growing it, because they've been growing it on their farm as well. So they sell it retail, and I'm just wondering if it's worth kind of doing a follow-up with that, you know, if anybody's interested in links to other sources of information. But yeah, there's a place, if you look up Flaxland, they sell small amounts of the seed retail. If you're buying it commercially, Easson's are the only company that I know of at the moment in the UK that you can buy it from commercially, and you can only buy the avian variety. So the other two varieties that we were trialing, Delta and Tango, are not commercially available in the UK yet. So we've had to get them on a trials license with lots of kind of Brexit related red tape to add into the mix. And they're us testing it and other people testing it with Easson's as part of that process of it being trialed in the UK to be approved for commercial sale. So once they're approved for commercial sale and kind of commercially available, there might be other seed companies that then start to sell those varieties. But it might be worth kind of highlighting as well at this point that Fibre Shed Scotland have instigated a project to look at how could you, you know, what would it look like, or how can we establish a fibre flax seed supply in Scotland, excuse me, and look at kind of developing Scottish varieties basically, and having a kind of seed bank for people that are wanting to grow it. So that's something else that's kind of developing alongside this, and was kind of instigated by a lot of these kind of conversations. So I hope in the future, in the not too distant future, there'll be other ways of getting fibre seed. That you don't have to sign a disclaimer to say you're not going to save the seed and things like that.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm gonna ask the next question because the person has left, but I think you've all touched on it in different ways, but it would be great to hear what your top one thing would be. Let's try. So Celine was asking, as the government seems keen to support a wider range of crops, what kind of support would farmers need to widen the rotation and include hemp and flax in the rotations? Processing power, market access. What is like the one thing that you think would help you? And Ali and John, would you like to go first?
I would say supply chains for selling seed in bulk would be the first thing. And maybe some reward for farmers in regard to the carbon capture, because it's such a sustainable crop. Building them supply chains certainly for the seed and making licensing easier so that more people are less put off the whole, application process. And I think for fibre, we need so much infrastructure put in place to be able to do it on a bigger scale, sharing equipment initially, and having a processing plant in Scotland, I think is going to be, that would be a game changer.
Thank you, Ali. John, what would it be for you?
It would be just a bit of help in actually to physically grow the crop. Like I said earlier, we're putting fertilizer on, and it's a bit of a stick your finger in the air and see what happens. A bit of just research, and certainly the fertilizer, and also, we're not spraying chemicals willy-nilly on all our crops. If our crop has a need to get something to keep it surviving, then I would like to be able to have some sort of fungicide spray or something to control the fungus that the plants are getting in the last couple of weeks before harvest. So just research, I suppose, research and development into the actual growing and harvesting of the crops.
Although what I didn't mention earlier was the James Hutton Institute. We've got a grant this year to grow the hemp through sustainable underutilized crops, and they're going to help us grow the crop with less fertilizer, but look at companion growing, looking at maybe having some other crop. I think they'd mentioned beans. It's only just kicked off, so we've not really got into the bones of it, but hopefully they'll come up with some solutions, some quite green organic solutions, because really nobody really wants any pesticides and fungicides on their food these days. If we can grow it without that, then that's the way that we would choose to go.
Thank you, Ali. Maddie, would you like to add anything?
Well, I also want to add that I know there is another trial starting this year with 3 sites in Scotland to help farmers understand how to grow hemp for fibre and dual varieties. This is quite a big trial. It's part of SAC, SRUC. One site is near Edinburgh, one here near Aberdeen. I don't remember where the other site is, but it's also looking to help farmers to understand growing new variety and what the problems they have in growing the crop. But us, how we can help the farmers, it's we address the bill on license with all the research findings we have. We support. Hopefully, we will we change the law, and that will help all the farmers, whether they grow for seed or for fiber. But we also help farmers to find real solution on their problems, whether they want to have total use of the crop, or what to do, what's best to do in terms of food. And yes, and hopefully we will bring enough evidence, because in this trial on fiber, they will also look at the soil. So it will be a larger scale evidence on how hemp benefit the soil, and that ultimately will address the bill, and hopefully the government will bring an help for the farmers for the to help with the carbon credit. So hemp will be recognized and farmer will receive a proper help, and this will be recognized. And but everything takes time. If you think about soya, 20 years ago was just an exotic crop, and look where we are on soya now. Soya is in everything. Unfortunately, we can't grow soya here. There's nothing wrong with it. We just overuse it. But yes, it's just a matter of time to get there.
Colleen, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think the supply chain and joining up the bits of the kind of processing to the market as well is the thing for flax. So being able to grow it is probably the most straightforward bit. I think some further research on which varieties do best in Scottish soils and climate and context and things, a bit more research probably as well on what other companion crops or other crops might it work well with being undersown with, or cropped together with, or what kind of rotation combinations might it fit in, would all be kind of useful things to have more information on. But the kind of missing middle at the moment for us, as well as the processing capacity. So Fibreshed Scotland and Fantasy Fibre Mill are kind of developing that smaller scale processing that can work at a kind of regional level. But I think for folk that are interested in growing it at that bigger commercial scale, some kind of acknowledgement or support or help in some way to kind of look at investment for that bigger processing kind of equipment, transport, the need for harvesting machinery as well, that's going to come into play at some point. So those kind of structural and supply chain and kind of supply network things are going to be what's going to help it get from the field to fabric, because there's already a kind of big network of weavers, spinners, dyers, people who can sell the end product, people who want to buy the end product. There's a lot of interest in buying linen and sustainable fibres and textiles and clothes, and so it's just kind of helped to join up all of those dots. So some of that is already happening, which is great. But yeah, more kind of support for that and a bit more research on the kind of agronomy side that fits the Scottish context, not the France, because we're just slightly different. There's a lot of overlap and there's a lot that we can learn from growers in Europe as well, but just that kind of help to join up the dots.
Thank you, Colleen.
I think just to add to what Colleen said, and having a recent discussion with Ali, I think what needs flax industry and maybe hemp industry in Scotland, it's a co-op where people could share infrastructure and machinery and facilities and primary processing infrastructure. And I think this will help very much people and will help attract more people into growing it, because we'll all face the same problem sooner or later.
That kind of
and I think Ali really put a dot on the I when he said that.
Yeah, the kind of role of a central point of contact and that facilitation for everybody who's on the ground doing the stuff and doesn't have time to organise what everyone else is doing, that kind of facilitation role.
Exactly, and share of machinery really and share of actual...
And kind of linking to those other networks across the UK that exist that I'm kind of discovering all the time, like Fibreshed in Wales, and just that sort of role as well would be really useful.
Great. And there was just a question in the chat about how we're sharing the video. I've put a link to our agroecology resources hub. So this is one of 7 webinars that we've held. We're holding one more the 7th of March on tree hay. We'll also put the link for that in in the chat, but you can find all the videos to our webinars there, and it'll also be sent by email directly, just how you received the link today from my email. Kira, you had another question?
Yeah, it might be a silly question, but I was just wondering, Colleen, you said at the start that, you know, when you're growing flaxseed, you get your sort of seed varieties and your fibre varieties. I was just wondering, with the fibre varieties, although they don't produce as much seed, is there still some seed yield? And if so, is it enough to be worth processing, like in terms of packaging and pressing for oil and all the other good stuff?
It's a good question. In terms of the volume, I'm not sure how much kind of volume you would need for pressing it for oil, for example, but you do, like the seed you get off a fibre flax crop is still the edible seed, you know, like you would have for your linseed or flaxseed that you were going to eat. So it definitely, you would be able to use it for all of those kind of uses. The only thing that you have to be wary of is the timing of harvest. So if you're harvesting it for the fibre, you want to harvest it a bit early so that you've still got the flexibility of the fibre and it's not gone too sort of dry and brittle. But harvesting it for your optimum fibre quality means that the seed isn't quite ripe yet. So there's a place called Malin Farm in Northern Ireland who've been growing fibre flax for a few years, and they have managed to get a dual fibre and seed crop out of it by harvesting it at the kind of optimum fibre quality time, so before the seed is ripe, but they harvest it and then they dry it, they hang it up in a barn to dry, and the seed continues to ripen, and then they remove the seed, and I think they kind of do it with a big tarpaulin on the scale that they're doing it, remove the seed and then use that for whatever you want to do with the seed, and then you've still got your fibre crop as well. So there's an extra kind of couple of stages of processing then, because you've still got to ret the fibre. So you would be sort of pulling it, drying it, removing the seed, ret it in water, or field ret it. So there's a couple of different methods, and I didn't go into that too much. Ret the fibre so that your lignins and pectins, all the woody stem bits, break down, and then you've got to dry it again after it's been retted before you can then process it, and it's got to kind of rest for a couple of months. So it just adds a couple of stages of processing, but it is possible to get seed and fibre from the one crop. Or the other way of doing it is, if you've got, you know, however big your block is, keep some aside for seed and harvest what you need for the fibre crop and keep some aside and let that carry on ripening and harvest that later for the seed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
So we're at 4 minutes to go. I can't see more questions on the chat. Does anyone have any last burning question before we close off the webinar?
Just one from me, Deanna. Just whether the carbon sequestration of hemp has been quantified or measured. I suppose that's really one for Maddie.
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't get
Just the carbon sequestration of hemp. Has that
Yes.
has it been quantified?
It is, well, there are a lot of figures. I don't think we have a figure in UK, but I know there is a big project now. NIAB has, maybe colleague can comment more. So this is a very big project on carbon sequestration, looking at various crops. Flax is one of them, hemp is one of them, to have a real data for UK.
Super.
Yes, but there are numbers. So by definitely, it's because I think flax and hemp, the way they benefit carbon sequestration is because they are growing very fast in very short time, and that's where the benefits of carbon sequestration come. I don't think there are. I'm not sure if there are data of in terms of. I don't remember. Colleen, you can correct me. It could be 10 to 12 tons per hectare of carbon. carbon dioxide. I'm not sure exactly, but that this is not data from UK though. This is just general data. But there is a big project now, Colleen, when I think it's worth mentioning, NIAP on it's 5.9 million over a few years, looking at a lot of crops with a lot of. Colleen, I'll let you. I don't take your protagonism.
A big budget. I actually put the link to that NIAB project in the chat somewhere, but I'm just looking for it again at the bottom of the chat so it's easier to find. And yeah, I just know a little bit about that project, but flax and hemp are sort of key crops that they're looking at. There is definitely figures around hemp carbon sequestration. I'm not sure about flax, but that's one of the ones that they're looking at over the next 3 years. They hope to start having figures. I think there is also a group of farmers involved in that project, and it's maybe the farm carbon toolkit that they're working with to do the measurements in Scotland at least. So I can look that up if anybody's interested in kind of following up any of those questions. If there's anything that we didn't answer, I've popped my email as well in the chat. So yeah, feel free people to kind of email with further questions that we didn't have time to go into more. And yeah, I'll find that NIAB link again to pop it in the chat. But there are some figures over the next 3 to 5 years. There will be a lot more because they're really looking into that. So I think that will be also an influencing factor in them wanting to support farmers to grow hemp and flax more, because they know they can, it sort of ticks the soil carbon box quite well.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Also, Denise, I answered some of your question of replacement for feed for soya. I think that's another aspect that will definitely will reduce the carbon footprint of a lot of food businesses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Food and feed, because we produce food through feeding animals as well. So I answered that to you, that we have projects going on, and we are now looking to we run a workshop next week on dairy and meat industry to understand how we can replace, you know, some of the facts that John said that he realized when he fed to his cattle hemp, he saw beneficial effects. But we're going to maybe run a proper study onto meat quality and milk quality. We already have trials going on eggs, so we try to understand if we replace soya on producing eggs, if we increase the fatty acids and the vitamin E, but we don't have the results just now. The trial just finishes, so we need to measure. So I think we definitely build the market and we build the supply chain, but it just takes time and will be, because if it's a holistic approach, it could be fiber, it could be food, if it could be soil. So we create a demand and to really deliver in terms of these new crops.
Wonderful, thank you.
We are at 8:30 now, so I don't want to. I don't want to take over people's times. So I don't know if Stephen, were you wanting to ask a question?
No, I didn't want to say anything.
Okay,
I just wanted to say thank you.
Nice to see you then. Great, thank you everyone so much for coming.
Thanks everybody, fascinating.
Thank
really,
you.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Thanks,
Colleen.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks everybody.
Really
Thank you.